G'day, guys. Welcome to the Home Invest School podcast, the first one for 2023. So, guys, if you're not part of the family, jump in, go to the YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button and the bell icon. So when we go live like now and do the countdown, you can jump in and you can be part of the action. Now, today I've got a special guest coming in. He is He's an investor that specializes in Airbnb and short-term rentals, and which is a very popular topic at the moment. So I reached out and thought I need to get a big gun in. So I thought, who do I go to? And it was Dave Snider. So Dave, I appreciate you coming into the podcast and spending some time with us.
It's awesome to be here, and welcome to Monday, or is it Tuesday over in Australia? Whatever it is, we're glad to be in it. How's that?
No, it's Saturday, but we're a day ahead. But
there you go.
Yeah, some say we're behind over here. Dave,
I missed it bad. I missed it bad.
No,
I'm thinking it's a Monday here. Every day is a Monday.
So yeah, we thought we'd get you in, Dave, because a lot of people are starting to use this strategy, and a lot of people thought Airbnbs had suffered during COVID, and a lot of the short-term people sort of moved into the short-term space. Some Airbnbs didn't suffer, but some did. So the short-term space really kicked off from COVID, and we just wanted to get down in the trenches with someone that's actually doing it day in, day out, and can get in the trenches and tell us what it's really like, the pros, the cons, and basically just you can give us a bit of an overview of how you've done it and of how your business runs. But first, I like people to get to know who Dave Snider is. So, can you give us a bit of a backstory on, how you got into real estate first, Dave? I don't know how long ago it was, but how you got into real estate and how you transitioned and got your business to the point it is now.
I got into real estate really in the mid-90s when I was a seminary student. As a graduate student, my wife was working for an airline, and my budget wasn't quite working. I needed additional funds to make our budget nice, and began to shop. Started with one courthouse for foreclosures, and I bought the Carlton Sheets course. That tells you how old I am. And actually signed up for their coaching program. Had some people coach me through how to wrestle and lasso foreclosures, and before you know it, was rehabbing those. I guess I called on 110 lenders and finally found one that said, "Yeah, we'll finance you if you can get a long-term letter from a mortgage lender says if you go over 18 months, they'll turn it into a 30-year note. Bring me that letter and we'll do it." So I got somebody, and then I started shopping 7 different counties courthouses. Before the internet, came up with sheets that would put all the data down there in terms of where the equity was, and began to acquire properties and fix them up, and typically retail and sell them. In some cases, I began to hold some as long-term rentals. And so I've, worked my way up to about 20 rental properties at this point. And I can tell you that can be fun, and it can be, you have to kind of learn how to manage it. So that's the long answer to your short question. Is that good?
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's great because it shows that, how you got into it. And so you sort of did the fix and flip or the rehab thing and retailed them, sold them through a realtor or whatever. And then what sort of, how many properties did you do before you said, "Nah, look, I think we need to keep these and we need to keep these as rentals"? Was there a period of time, or you sort of did it both at the same time? You sold some, you kept some?
Yeah, it depended on the asset. There was a property that we had lived in. I had bought a little property and began learning how to fix it up. It was an old little, it smelled bad, it looked bad, and I bought it because it was close to campus, and we began to doll it up and fix it up, make it look nice, and people wanted to come over to our place. And so, even a friend of mine's lifelong friend, and we met in college, and he's an attorney, and he would say, "Hey, let's get together. Can we come to your place?" And we had made it look absolutely wonderful, and it became a delightful place to be. But because it was so old, I didn't want to hold it long term. I did move out of it, hold it as a rental for a little while, and I thought, if I'm going to part with one, I think I'll part with that one. It's either spend some significant money and make it a lot more, or let somebody else do that and roll my money into something else. And so I began buying more newer properties, and every asset was different. And you look at it and you say, this one's worth holding on to, this one's worth flipping, I can get more out of it. So I just make that decision on a case by case basis and still do.
Yeah, yeah. And then, so you did the rentals. At what stage did you start doing the Airbnb, the short term rental? Did that come a lot later? Did that
It
come?
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
So you did the traditional method, tenants, being a landlord, and then you did a bit of a penny drop. Did something happen where you went, oh, I can actually probably have a little bit less hassles with, that I get with tenants, and I can actually make a bit more cash flow? Was there an aha moment when you sort of went, let's try something different?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm a member of the local Real Estate Investors Association here. It's called Carolina Real Estate Investors Association for Western North Carolina. And I went to one of the focus groups that focused on it. And one of the leaders said, you can get better margins, ex dividend higher margins if you do short-term rentals or furnished or vacation rentals. And that perked my ears up. I'm always looking for ways to improve margins. And I think, I could do that. So as I was acquiring properties to either hold or, fix up and flip or rent, and as you get better at the rental game and learning how to screen tenants and how to put more responsibilities on them and that type of thing, one asset came to my attention through just the course of looking at properties that I thought, this is going to be kind of a tough one to get a lease option tenant in. If somebody were to take over, the mortgages were between $3,000 and $4,000. I would need somebody who would be paying between $4,000 and $5,000 a month for a mortgage for a big, 5 to 7 acre property, 5-bedroom, 4-bath. It can occupancy up to 19. And decided, let's go the short-term rental route. Let's fix it up. And it's part of the video I sent to you that shows you a sampling of the different properties I've got. Anything from an A-frame cabin in a 5-acre plot near the Blue Ridge Parkway and the Arboretum, to this one is way up near the Blue Ridge Parkway up on the north side of town, but yet you can still get to downtown Asheville in 14, 15 minutes. So let's try that. And sure enough, for the last 4 years or so, it's cash flowed an average of $158,000 a year, which I figured was a little better than what somebody would do on a lease option basis or something like that. So it was a function of better cash flow for that particular asset.
Yeah. Yep. And how long ago was that when you started? What would you say, 5 years ago, was it? Or like
that's about 5 years ago. There was one that I started short-term renting using turnkey vacation rental, and it was in the city limits, and so somebody had to live in it, and you could rent out a couple of bedrooms. At some point I decided, let me try furnishing a thing and trying mid-term rental on that one. And so I started about 2017 or 18 just to try to get more cash flow out of the properties. Properties were still semi-affordable here in our area. They've never been as affordable as other areas of the state, but it was a good decision. It's a good decision. People have enjoyed coming. I enjoy giving that great guest customer experience to people. And this year we host, each year we host a little over 3,000 guests per year.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing. 3,000 people. And that's a part of it too that people don't really talk about, is giving someone that experience, someone coming from another state or somewhere, out of town, and giving them that experience. It actually can give you a bit of a buzz, that people, some people have no contact with them. Some people have some contact with them. So it just depends where you're at, but it's a good feeling to know that someone's enjoyed their stay and they've had a great time and they've left really good comments. So that's a really good point that a lot of people don't talk about. It's generally just about the figures, the bottom line. But that's true, Dave. And, no one knew that'd be important to you, that they have a great experience as well. Just as, as a human being, just as a human to a human. So can you give us sort of like just an overview of your business? And I just mean as in pros and cons. We won't go too far into the weeds, but just like pros and cons. Like if someone's listening and they're thinking of doing this, or they're just starting off in this industry, just something that they can you can give some bullet points, or you can explain how, look, these are the real benefits and these are the sort of shortcomings that you're going to have to be prepared for.
Yeah, I would say you can get more cash flow out of a property if you market it correctly, if you stage it and furnish it correctly. I like to put a ping pong table or table tennis in most of them, and a pool table in most of them. In one case, we've got an air hockey table in there. I've got another one out here that I'm probably going to put an air hockey in, like a child's air hockey table in one of them as well. So try to think through, what would I want to do and enjoy if I were vacationing. There's usually some weights. There's usually a treadmill, maybe an elliptical, because I like to do, cardio and some workouts early in the morning. So I think that through. In some cases, that's in the garage. In some cases, that's out on the screen porch, that type thing. But in terms of an overview, I believe your question was asking what's the upside and the downside. The downside is occasionally things are going to happen on these properties that if it were a normal rental property, let's say you call me and you're renting a property from me and you said, left a voicemail that says, Dave, it's Graham Solomon, your air conditioning and heating is not working so well. Can you help me? Well, typically I would have informed you already as a renter on who to contact if something goes wrong with that and how to make some remedies. If you're a vacationing guest, probably not. I would send you information, what brings you to this part of the world this time of the year, so I can kind of hear that. By the way, you've got neighbors around you, even though you can't see them. It looks like it's your own mountain, but there are neighbors who can see you. Remember that some of them get up at 3 or 3:30 in the morning. Some of them have sleeping babies. Some of them are engineers and nurses working crazy hours, keep the noise levels tolerable. Our neighbors ask for that. Please help us. And by the way, please don't take food and beverages into the bedrooms. We've had to replace some of the bedding, furniture, and our cleaning staff's gotten a bit stressed if it attracts, insects or something. So try to keep the food and beverage out of the bedrooms. So just little things like that I would communicate in a text, and they're cut and paste. They're sent to everybody per the property and giving them tips on what's around them. So you see there's a difference. If you're a long-term renter, I'm not going to tell you stuff like that. And if the air conditioner heater goes, said, well, somebody says he'll be over on Tuesday or Wednesday of next week to get your heat going. I'm sorry, it's a cold winter, or it's really hot in the summer. I'm sorry. Hey, there's a spare room air conditioning unit downstairs. Just go get it and use that for the interim. Put it in your bedroom, sleep at night. Well, with a vacationing guest, it's a little more, you need to have thought through some of those things. And so my experience is if an air conditioner is going to go out in July or August, it's going to go out when I'm out to dinner with my wife in Hilton Head Island, 6 hours away. Or one year I was in New Zealand for 2 weeks, and I get a call while I'm working out early in the morning, and it means it's afternoon over here. Or, Mr. Snider, are you aware that someone's shot a firearm off at one of your properties up on the mountain? Right. Well, he said, no, I'm not, but it is within their rights. They're out in the county, and I'm sure you heard from a neighbor who's concerned about it. Said, yeah, we are. So the sheriff's on their way over there. Just thought we'd let you know. Said, well, why don't you do this? It was somebody who helps market the property for me. Said, why don't you put in the listing, please no firearms, please no fireworks, please respect the privacy of others. And I said, I'll be glad to text the guests and see if the text can speak. And T-Mobile is good for some things and less good for other things. But I texted the guests and said, can you speak? And they texted back and said, as soon as the sheriff leaves, I can. And I talked to them and said, well, how'd that go? I said, well, it's fine. They said, you're in your rights, but know that neighbors are concerned. They want to know, is somebody being shot? I said, no, you can let them know that, no, we were just recreational shooting. We didn't know anybody was up here. Because it looks like their own space, but sound travels, especially upstream, uphill. So there's just little things like that. I typically have 4 or 5 companies that I can call that'll go out and fix an air conditioner and get out there at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night and fix it. I've got people that can go out and relight a hot water heater. It's just, you ought to think through some of those items. If you're going out of town and you've got vacation rentals, you might want to have some of those people on your Rolodex, and you might even want to assign somebody who can handle those items for you and make those calls for you, because it's one thing for me to give them to a guest. Yeah, call these 4 or 5 people, see if somebody will come help you. But we also have maintenance relationships, maintenance agreements with some of these companies that we pay to come out and maintenance our property twice a year, the air conditioning and heating, so that they won't break down. And even though they're exorbitant at what they want to charge, they will come out and fix it on a holiday. And so you need to have people that can go out on a holiday, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday morning, things like that. And occasionally I get involved in that. If I've got, it's okay for me to step away and go handle something, the hot tub's low and it's not working quite right. Usually I can talk them through it over the phone, but there's times that, oh, heck, I'll just drive up there. So it's a little
Yeah.
more hands-on. The
Yeah.
cash flow is a little better. There are a few additional, levels of things you have to think through. And if you process those things and give them a great guest experience, it can be rewarding.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And like, so you'd have like talking about that, you'd have systems in place, not just for that. I mean, just for an emergency or something like that. Do you have systems in place for for your bookings and for your maintenance, your general maintenance? Do you have sort of a system, or do you just do each property as it needs stuff, or as you know, everyone on its own merits? Have you got, because a lot of
There's definitely
people would,
systems.
yeah,
Yeah, there's
sorry,
definitely systems. Yeah.
yeah,
You
you've got
put
systems in place, yeah,
policies in place, make your life better. And there are people that supposed to check before a guest arrives, make sure everything's pretty good. I use an app on my smartphone called Smart Things, where if I want to turn a guest is coming in late at night, I'll turn on the driveway lights. One of the properties actually has right now holiday wreaths lit up as they come in. It's a really dark mountain where there's no street lights, and so they get greeted with that. And then these pole lights, street lights, guiding the way to get to the property, and to turn on front porch lights. So I can do that with a smartphone, or I can adjust thermostats, or I can lock and unlock doors, or I can open and close garage doors. If you're coming in the rain at night, I can, okay, hang on a second, let me open the garage door for you, slide on in. So yeah, you think through systems, and I can share those things. Smart Things is what I use for the smart home maintenance type things. I use MyQ for garage door openers. So yeah, there's a variety of things like that you can use. You don't have to. I know people that do it without it, but for me, it makes life a little easier.
yeah, yeah. And what about bookings? I'm just trying to think of some other things. Bookings, um, yeah, like maintenance, you've got covered. Is there a certain platform you use, or do you do it yourself? And it's the same with marketing. Do you market yourself, or do you like? What do you think is the best way to go? Cost effective and time effective.
I have I still do it a variety of ways. I started with the first one with Turnkey Vacation Rental, which was acquired by Vacasa. And so I have
Yep.
3 properties that are currently managed by Vacasa. They charge a percentage to both do your marketing, handle your bookings, as well as they're supposed to be an entity that you can be out of town and they'll never bother you. That's not my experience so far, but we're working towards that. They don't like to take 30 days and more rentals. So if you have city limit rentals, the city requires 30 days or more. And so for those, I advertise on typically VRBO, Airbnb, Zillow, FurnishedFinder.com, which is where traveling professionals like nurses and physicians look. So I typically go at least 4 platforms like that for those, say, I call them midterm rentals, 30 days or more. And people will come in and want 6 weeks, 4 months, 2 months. The most I've ever seen somebody has won a whole year, which I don't like to do a whole year, but I just did agree for one of them, a condo that overlooks the city and has gorgeous views of the city from up top of a mountain. So we just agreed to rent that one out furnished for a year for full fee. So we're happy with that. But if I could do everything with one company and leave it all with one company, that would be great. But I haven't found one company yet that would manage everything, including midterm rentals. Their policies don't. I did for quite some years use Evolve Vacation Rental. Evolve, if they work in your area, they will handle the marketing, such as they'll give you an app that your cleaning staff can also see, so they know when to go in and do cleanings without having to contact you or the guests. They manage the difference between bookings.com and hotpads.com and Airbnb and VRBO. They, anywhere from 10 to 20 different marketing platforms. They'll handle that. But Evolve Vacation Rental does not provide the cleaning staff or the maintenance staff for you. You have to kind of quarterback and develop your own team for that, which you can do, make some phone calls, find some dedicated people. And I did that for a while. I just am right now in the process of converting 3 properties over to Vacasa. Still have a 4th one over 3 hours from here at a place called Winston-Salem, Louisville, North Carolina, which most people have never heard of. But we have a 5-bedroom, 3-bath there that stays, cash flows. That one cash flows at about $43,000 per year. So we net probably between $8,000 and $9,000 a year on that one net. whereas our highest peaking one cash flows at 158,000 a year, and we probably earned over half of that, probably 80,000 or more on that one property. So they range anywhere in that range.
Yeah, and that goes into the pro side of it, where the really good cash flow, and that's where people look at this strategy because it can give you that extra cash flow, and that sort of segues us into the nitty gritty, the good parts that people are probably wanting to know about is the financial side of it. Now, firstly, with that's sort of the running of it and everything, but the actual pure investment side of it. Now, what's your favorite strategy to purchase a property to then have it as a short term or an Airbnb? What's your favorite, and what other ones do you use?
Well, ideally, the most recently acquired property that I got, I think I closed on within the last 6 weeks, and the dear lady is about to move out of. It was an estate property. We got her to agree to owner financing. I put something down, an agreed upon amount that came out of a solo 401k. So I like to invest my IRA, HSA, my wife's IRA or HSA, all of that stuff down. And they agreed to take just a note and receive the rest of their money in a year. It was an estate property. They didn't need it. They only needed a certain amount. So I will owe them the rest of it in a year. And they're not sure what they're going to do with the money. I said, well, if you decide you want to lend it to me, I can turn it into a note and make monthly payments to you, and you can become the bank, and then you can have a long-term 30-year income stream at your interest rate that you and I choose. So I like that one the best. There are some folks. I had an electrician who had done some work for me on several properties, and he'd done good work. He had tried getting into being a rehabber and managing people to do renovations. And I'd say his skills at that weren't as tall and strong as they needed to be. And so he'd gotten burned out very quickly. He hadn't had success at it. And bless his heart, he was just burned out, depressed, and wanted to go home to New Hampshire. And he said, would you buy my house? I said, I'd buy it if you'll put it in a trust, make me the manager of the property, make me the power of attorney on the property so I can talk to your mortgage company. I'll make sure the mortgage payments are covered. He said he was behind on them. I said, I'll re-engage those and get them covered for you. How much equity do you think you have? And he ended up saying, I don't know, could you give me $10,000? I said, I can. But I was doing some due diligence. He ended up saying, oh, heck with it. Can you just give me 5 and let me get out of here? And so I bought that one subject to, put it in a trust. And that one has cash flowed nicely. For that one, I managed it as a midterm furnished rental for a while. I staged it. It looked beautiful. I got good photography and video done on it. But another firm came along that wanted it. I get regular calls from companies that want to manage my properties or, co-host or whatever. They want to get into it without buying it. And there was a firm that wanted to buy that one on a lease option. So they're currently leasing it with a strong down payment. And we'll see if they buy it in a few more years. They've been doing it for over a year. But that one had a nice positive cash flow without me having to manage it anymore. So again, each asset I look at differently, but that's, I hope I answered your question and didn't wander off chasing the rabbit.
No, that did answer the question because, obviously with a real estate podcast, you've got a lot of investors in here. You've got a lot of people that have done traditional methods, a lot of people that are starting off that go, I haven't got that much capital. So these are strategies that you're talking about that can be used even to get one under your belt to get up and running, to rather than having to go and borrow all the money from the bank, all of that sort of stuff. Because a lot of people I talk to say, I haven't really got great credit, or I have, and they think that they can't do it. And that's a bit of a myth, that you can actually pick something up on a subject to. You can get something on a seller finance, and then the cash flow is really healthy by having it as a short term. And just sort of circling back to, like you said, with the nurses and everything before, you can get some people there for 6 to 12 months. You haven't got turnover, you haven't got damage. The people who aren't really in the house a lot of the time, they're at work. So I was just sort of asking you that question, Dave, because a lot of people, this is a great strategy, obviously not just for the cash flow, but for the way that you acquire properties really suits that you're going to keep them long term, because you wouldn't want to probably move them on because they're such great properties. They're great returning properties. So that answers the question. Now, so that's your favourite part of acquiring them. Now we'll get into probably the part that'll excite most people is the cash flow, how much better is it than a traditional rental? We've just touched on the fact that traditional rental, you can come in, half the plaster's hanging off the wall and it's been trashed. There's more chance of that. But what about the cash flow? What's been what you've experienced with that? How much better is the cash flow per year, say?
Yeah, and by the way, to finish up the other thing, there's one property that I had to go visit this morning. You and I were talking on a device, telephone, using Facebook Messenger or something.
Yeah.
That I visited a property that I often will ask investors out there that would you ever consider finding high rates of return without market volatility beneficial to you and your portfolio and your investment? So we use private money to acquire these properties as well.
Beautiful.
And in one case, a gentleman said, "Hey, I would like to be involved, but I'd like to become, an equity partner. Would you consider that?" I said I would. He'd been a former missionary and needed help build his retirement and build some money. And so I went and got a private lender to fund the rehab, which was a $250,000 private loan. And he put in 150 of his. And so I've got, the only money I've got in is my IRAs and HSAs and that sort of thing contributed to closing costs. But on the trust, it said I get 50% of this. And so there's ways to acquire these properties with very little of your own money if you use some of these strategies. But back to your question about cash flow, each of them are different. The first property I started with in a downtown Asheville was an old 100-year-old property that a fella had passed away in. And I could have rented it out at the time for about $1,800 a month as is. If I'd fixed it up, then I could have probably rented it out for $2,000, $2,200 a month or something. Well, I started getting that just on vacation, renting out 2 bedrooms. So I could tell there's a lot more to this. And I ended up rehabbing the entire house, brick to brick, everything pulled out and replaced. And there was a basement in it that he'd used a small portion as a barber shop. I renovated the whole basement and made that a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. In the upstairs, a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bedroom house with, hot tub on a covered porch on the back and a fenced backyard and so on. So we rent them out separately. Typically get about $3,800, sometimes as much as $5,000 a month just for the upstairs. And the downstairs, we get typically $2,700 a month. So if you put those two figures together, you're getting roughly $5,000 or $6,000 a month out of it, compared to a straight rental where you might only get maybe half that or less. So your cash flow is higher. You have put furniture in there. I've typically enjoyed trolling estate sales for properties that have beautiful furniture, pennies on the dollar, or the habitat restores where somebody's just dumping off stuff, and you will occasionally find a gorgeous leather sleeper sofa, for very little money, but it's really nice. Or you might get one and say, I want this recovered at the upholstery shop, and they'll do it for you. So you have to furnish it. You have to put in a full kitchen and glasses and microwave stuff, all those things. But once you do, the cash flow is stronger. So you have to do the math and do your own calculations as to how you want to do your business. There are some friends of mine who won't touch short-term rentals. They don't want to mess with it. It's a little too messy, and they just like their other methods. And by the way, I've gotten to the place where if somebody's going to do a long-term rental, I'll market it as a rent to own. And if they approach me and say, well, I will give you whatever deposit you want, but I don't want to buy it, but I will rent it, and I will take over all of the management, all of the maintenance, and I won't call you, I promise. We've got some of that going on. So if that appeals to you, you can use that strategy and have no headaches. But if you do pursue short-term rentals or vacation rentals, occasionally there will be some of those things that it's not in the playbook. I don't think you can put items in the playbook like, since some of these properties have an upstairs and I rent the upstairs and downstairs separately. A bloke from New York texted and then called me and said, I got in a little bit too late. It's between 2 and 3 in the morning. Maybe my girlfriend and I were a little too rough on the bed anyways. Maybe the bed was bouncing and pounding, and the girls downstairs didn't like it. So they banged on the ceiling, let us know. My girlfriend doesn't want to stay here anymore. She's uncomfortable. Can we get our money back, and can we leave?
Yeah.
That's not the playbook.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I had to work with him and say, well, I've got some other properties I can move you to. I suspect I might have had the same experience if I was trying to sleep and get up at 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
But we'll work through it, and you just work through stuff with caring with people. So I'm just throwing out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me shut up.
No. They're great points, because a lot of people wouldn't even think of that. I mean, there is a lot of stuff, but once again, there's a big upside. So I think people would probably, think of the upside, but it's like anything. The old term is, get into real estate for a passive income. I don't think there's anything that's truly passive unless you've got other people managing it, because all these things come up. The same thing happens with rentals. You might have property managers in, but you've got to sometimes manage them. Every strategy's got those things. So it's good that you're upfront and honest, because the people, like I said, you're in the trenches. You're not on stage trying to sell the dream to someone. You need to know the downsides, and that's one of probably the downsides is you've got to be a little bit more hands on sometimes. So I know some people would pay, try and pay someone to manage a bit more, but I think the experience is better in the Airbnb world than that if you're involved, because you've got that personal touch and you know what you want. So no, that's fine. Now the last one, I'm going to ask you about your time at Social Media Blueprint at Home Invest. I'm going to ask you about your time there. So I've got a few questions about that and a few mindset questions. What sort of mindset it takes to be getting a phone call when you're in New Zealand and getting hassled, all that sort of stuff. But the last sort of question I have about the short-term rentals was, is it a long-term game? Like like obviously if you keep the property as an investment for 10, 15 years, the appreciation will happen. But is this something that you're looking at for long term, like pretty much retirement? You'll still have these, even though there's going to be some hands-on stuff, or have you got a different strategy? You're like, no, when we're this age, we're out. We're going to get out. What's your end game with it?
Mostly a hold for the long term. However, the market went a little crazy here in the last year. And so there was a property that I did acquire for about 435 or so, probably 4 or 5 years ago. It's listed for a little over 2 million right now. And so if that one sells a little over 2 million, we'll let it go instead of taking the 158,000 or cash flow, whatever it is. By the way, you can always hire companies that will manage them for you and take all of it. You work with them to communicate what they need to do, and they'll charge anywhere from 20% to as high as 40% of the rent. You can beat that, but those are the general ranges. 20 to 35% is the averages. So we've utilized some of that. But yeah, if in some cases, if a property is primed and you can get a lot of money for it, there's no harm in that. But for the most part, we hold them and they cash flow, and we keep growing our portfolio. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I have people who strictly flip. That's fine. We do some of that, but some of these, I don't know. I enjoy the interaction. I enjoy the properties, and I always like to fix them up as if I would live in them myself and enjoy it.
Yeah.
So,
unfortunately, you did send me a video, and I wish my tech skills were better. I would have loved to have got that on the screen and shown it. It's a beautiful video that goes through all the properties, and there's some before and after photos. It's a beautiful thing. I don't know if you can I could get you to on share screen, but we might be able to go out with it. It's just beautiful. Like the properties are gorgeous. Actually, the one other thing I'll just throw in before I jump in the SMB stuff was another thing that's become popular. And I don't know if you do this, but you know about it, is the Airbnb arbitrage, where you lease a property and then you Airbnb it. So you become the middleman between, like you basically lease it off someone. You don't buy it, you don't take possession, but then you turn it into an Airbnb or a short-term rental, and you make the money in between. Do you know anyone that does that strategy?
I have not yet done that. I have approached some people about doing that. And in some cases they said, well, I'd like to have some of that cash flow and the money. And to me, I'm thinking, well, as much headache as it is, I don't think so. So I haven't had to, because I've been able to acquire properties creatively through standard marketing methods. But there are people that do that, and it can be a great source of connecting with properties. There's definitely some people that don't want to manage the property. In essence, you become the property manager. If you can assure them that you can do that well, then you can rent it out long-term, short-term. Why would they care? You're going to take care of the property, and you assign take the rights and you write them a contract to that. Graham, I do have a button here where I can actually show that compilation video.
Yeah.
It just shows a sample of the projects here.
Yeah, I'd like people to have a look because I was pretty impressed by it. Let me just.
I can push the button and see if it'll work. You want me to try it?
Yeah, you try it on your end. You'll try it on your
Well,
end.
I pushed the button. If you can see it, that we might send to somebody thinking of coming to the area. So I don't know if you can see it or not. I see it
here we go.
On the screen.
Here we go. It'll come up. You have me at a low. You have me at a low, Dave. You have me at a low. I reckon. Well, I definitely know when I'm flying out to the States, I'm going to North Carolina. I'm staying with the Sniders. I'm going to one of their places. They were absolutely beautiful, and it was good to see how you had the before and after photos too, because that can show people. Yep, if you want to get it to top level and get the top money, you've got to do a little bit of work. You've got to furnish it, like you said. You put pool tables in. You put hot tubs. You put a few things. So that's part of the experience. But they're amazing places.
Yeah, one of them was actually a single wide mobile home. They didn't show the outside of it. One of them actually, some of them we've done are single wides, and we've typically owner financed those out, sold them on the MLS. But I do have managers of vacation properties that said that would definitely vacation rent, and we'd love to manage it for you, and we can get you X cash flow. So you just look at each situation individually, and obviously one of them, it showed that they had a carport, and we converted that carport into a bedroom and a bathroom. And so it's just looking at space and what can I do with it. In that one, I wanted to hold it and furnished rent it and vacation rent it. My wife did not. No, let's just get the money, take the money and run and be done with it. So we got, twice what we paid for it, and we made a good margin. So there's all of that. You had asked about my journey with SMB, Social Media Blueprint, and Nate Armstrong.
Yeah, I'll jump back on that because we're sort of getting near time now. What has been your journey? Like, you started off now, I actually was in the class, I guess the class of, was it 2021 or I'm not sure, it was a couple of years ago. The actual Social Media Blueprint class, I was in that with you. But since then, you're still there, aren't you? So have you progressed through other stages?
I was listening to Nate this morning when I was in the gym. I was on training when I was walking the dog this morning, listening to Nate Armstrong. I get a lot of energy out of listening to Nate and Kate and all of them. Incredible people, brilliant people, caring people, high energy people, and good looking people. Kate Whetstone is easy to look at.
Well, funny you say that. She's a fan of yours. She's giving you a like here. I saw that come up. So she must think the same about you. And we got Nick who was at the 3-day event the other day. He's a fan of yours as well. Very tight team, very good team, very close family in the home invest space and the Social Media Blueprint space. So yeah, you're right, Dave. They fantastic people. And so you're still there, and you're in the elite program now, aren't you? You're sort of transitioned away and stay
all
with.
Of them are fun, and yes, we had told him a few years ago when I tried elite. I said, I don't think I'm ready for this yet. I need to get my wheels where they're turning a little bit better. I'm a turtle. I'm a plotter. Let me get up to where I feel like I can do one, instead of just 1 or 2 or 3 a year. If I can get to where I'm doing more, then maybe I can get on the bandwagon. So I think I came to that place here in the last, couple of months and said, I think the time is here. I'd like to get your expertise to help me learn how to grow things and hand things off to other people and learn more. I'm still struggling to learn some of the principles that they teach, but I'm fascinated by them, and I'm at it every day and doing the best I can. I highly recommend, out of all of the, I've been through a lot of training programs and think highly of all of the people I've been affiliated with regards to training programs, including Carlton Sheets, who is, I don't know if he's still alive or not, but certainly Ron LeGrand, certainly Lou Brown, certainly, a host of the response team, and Dean Graziosi, and on. There's a lot of different programs I've been a part of and still sample in. But in terms of one of the questions you asked me was, how did SMB help to provide solutions for some of these problems? Helping me to always grow my brain in the way of solutions of how to acquire properties better, how to manage properties better, how to manage me better and life better, time better, money better, all those things. Nate's been through it, Nate and Kate and the team. And I am in it because I feel like, well, I've done it all these years with some success, but basically I say, compared to what he's doing, I'm doing it wrong. I want to learn how they do things better. You asked one of the questions, do you mind my looking at the little thing? Do I have a particular routine in the morning? You want me to go there on mindset?
Yeah, because it's a very important part of a lot of investors that are successful is success habits and a routine. So that was one of the questions that I shot to you. So yeah, what's yours, Dave? What's your routine?
I learned the morning routine ritual long ago, bits and pieces from different places. One of the things I learned is that Mike Tyson, who was a, funky, they called him a chubby kid. They called him the little fairy boy. They liked to beat him up. And he met Cus D'Amato up in New York, who invited him over for dinner and said, kid, if you'll work with me and follow what I tell you, I'll make you the heavyweight boxing champion of the world in less than 5 years. Tyson didn't know what to do with it. Well, he started him with 4 a.m. workouts. And he said, I hated every 4 a.m. workout, but I loved the title. And so one of the things I learned long ago was from him and Arnold Schwarzenegger and other people is to get in the gym early, get up and read early. I started right out of college getting to the office early and reading for almost an hour before I got my work done. So I would show up an hour before I'm supposed to be there and read books. Today I listen to audiobooks as well as read books every day. So I have a routine that I get up early, earlier than most people want to get up.
Yep.
I pray. I have my devotions. I read my affirmations. I try to read them with emotion and positivity. I try to do visualization. I try to do an evening affirmation to give my brain something to think about, say a prayer about what you're going to, I think it's Linda Sivertson who wrote the book, Beautiful Writers, said, I'll ask my brain a question, say a quick prayer, go to bed. It's amazing how your brain can work in the night, sometimes come up with the solutions. I'll say, God, help me with this. I need this, and I'll expect it. And sure enough, it's amazing how often it happens. But it includes affirmations, visualizations, reading, exercising. I'm typically at the gym. Used to be 5:30 in the morning. Now I'm in the gym typically about 5. And at 6 o'clock to 7, I'm typically riding a bike up and down these mountains that I live on and walking a dog up and down the mountain that I live on because I'm doing cardio to keep my healthy, health-wise, conscious-wise, food-wise. I eat mostly a keto Mediterranean colorful diet that's very healthy, low in fats and high in good fats, but low in the bad fats. And some of the success habits
you got a pretty squeaky routine. I might have to get the Dave Snider health routine and success routine because that's as good as anyone's that I've heard. I mean, you do a lot of exercise too, so that's
constant education. You mentioned constant education is something that I believe in. CANI, constant and never-ending improvement. I'm a big fan of that, as is Tony Robbins and all kinds of other gurus. I'm a big fan of that.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. We're sort of running out of time. We've gone a little bit over. I really appreciate your time because, look, one thing that I just want to share with the audience was when I went through this SMB program with Dave Snider, he was legendary because he had a Dave Snider background, a virtual background. It was a big Dave Snider. And I begged and pleaded that I could get a Dave Snider background. I've really made it when I've got a Dave Snider background. So hopefully he can flick me one through. And if we ever get you back on, I'll start with the Dave because it was like Hollywood. It was like a Hollywood background. It was like Dave Snider with a Dave Snider background. So we had a bit of a joke about that. You got a good sense of humor, Dave. We always sort of had a little bit of a joke as well. So that was good. But you're still there now. There's a lot of people I went through that have gone that next level. And that's what we sort of touched on with the education side of it. You've got to constantly keep educating. Now, I'd say your return on investment is really good on your education. Just judging by that video that I watched talking to you, people say, I'll do it all myself and that. But your return on investment can be seen, purely just by your properties and what we've talked about today. So people have got to start thinking differently. You've got to keep investing in yourself. All the guys that I know that are successful that I maybe do a podcast with around the country, they all have success habits and they all reinvest back in themselves. So with education, so they're really good points. And obviously that's something you've picked up and Nate's big on it. So Nate's drummed it into all the social media blueprint people, but I really appreciate it, Dave. If there's anything else you'd like to leave with, like if you've got any other thoughts for the viewers, it's been a great interview. And I mean, that video just tops it off because it just shows you, I guess, the fruits of your labor. It shows you how you've put together a portfolio and something that I guess, even if you did decide to go even longer term, could be left to your kids, could be the generational wealth through real estate. So congratulations. You've done a great job, you and your wife. And thanks for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Hey, you're welcome. I would say constant and never-ending learning is how most successful people progressed. Henry Ford didn't learn it all himself. 6th grade education, he would learn from others. Thomas Edison networked with Mr. Firestone and several other people that were going places. So always network with people. I'm a member of the Asheville Rotary, the brilliant people that run this city. I'm the care captain for the care committee. If you're in the hospital or break your leg, I'm there to bring you a meal or say hello. I'm a member of multiple car clubs. I'm a vice president membership of Toastmasters, learning how to speak a little bit better, that sort of thing. So personal development is important, I think, but it's not absolutely necessary to get involved in real estate. Go out, find a way to get a property, find a way to get it rented, learn from others, even if you just listen to Bigger Pockets. But you can't do any better with education than Nate Armstrong and social media's offerings. It's stellar beyond belief with everybody, and you can't do better with podcasts than yours.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, one of my last questions was, other than the Home Invest School podcast and the Thunder from Down Under podcast, do you listen to any other podcasts, or is that just it? Are you just addicted to those two?
I listen to podcasts all the time, always searching and listening to multiple audiobooks, podcasts, all of it, listening to thought leaders who give you tips on how to improve, success. You can always learn something from somebody. I love studying people who've accomplished a lot and seeing how they do it. The theory is, if they can do it, why not me? Why not try it? Yep. And you learn how and the stumbling difficulties and challenges they went through. Most people don't know that Bill Gates did go through some challenges, that Howard Schultz of Starbucks did go through some challenges, and you get to see how they worked through those challenges. Conrad Hilton in hospitality, how he went through the Depression and lost most of his properties, how he worked with people to get there. So I think always learning is a great idea. I would just encourage you to seek out those that will inspire you, lift you up, and teach you from the greats, and have always read their books and always been learning from them, and plan to be doing that for another 50 years.
Yeah. No, I agree totally. So that's a great point to end on. Thanks again, Dave. When I'm coming in, I've got a friend in North Carolina. I'll do a shout out because I think he's in this Facebook group, CC Gale, and I'm going to make an effort to get up and see him. I'm coming to stay in one of those properties. They're beautiful. So I'll roll into town. I'll make sure I book it before I leave Australia, though. But I'll roll into town, and I might do a podcast live for Home Invest from one of your short-term rentals or Airbnb. So great stuff. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure people that are thinking about getting into this genre will get a fair bit out of that interview too, Dave. And I'm pretty sure they were impressed about the video too, because that was beautiful. That's great marketing too. Great marketing as well with that video.
Australia is one of my favorite places to be. If I had to live somewhere else, Wellington, New Zealand, or Sydney, Australia, or Melbourne, some of my favorite places to be, maybe Singapore, but over where you're at is a wonderful place. And Graham Solomon's podcasts are awesome. You always have fascinating guests on there, very educational. Appreciate what you're doing, and let me know how to help further. I hope all of you have an awesome weekend, since it's Friday afternoon here and Saturday in Australia. And we'll look forward to catching up with you some other time. Thanks for having me on the show today.
No worries. Good on you. You too. Have a great weekend. And thanks, Dave, for coming in. Appreciate your time.
You too.
See you, mate. Cheers.
Bye-bye.